All right, so first I'm going to define a new user model. So here in the models folder, add a new file, user.js. Now to save time, I'm going to go to genre.js and borrow some code from here. So copy, back to user.js, paste it here. Now on the top, so we have this schema. I'm going to define this while calling the model method. There is really no need in this case to define this as a separate constant. So let's get this schema object and add it here. And now we can get rid of this schema. Okay, that's better. We also need one extra closing parenthesis here. Okay, perfect. So that's our model. We should call this constant user, and the corresponding collection should also be users. Now here we have name property, which is a string. It's required and it's between 5 to 50 characters. That sounds good to me. Next, let's add email. So I'm going to grab all this code, duplicate it, and the second property is email. So again, we have these properties. I would like to increase the maximum length to 255 characters. And also, as I told you in the last lecture, we should add the unique property to make sure we don't store two users with the same email in MongoDB. And the last property is password. So I'm going to copy all this, duplicate, and add this password property. Now I'm going to set the max length of passwords to a higher value because we're going to hash these passwords. And honestly, I don't remember on top of my head what is the length of these hashed passwords. So let's say 1024 characters. And here we don't need the unique property. Next is our validate function. So we need to rename this to validate user. Validate user, that takes a user parameter. Here we have name, which is between 5 to 50 characters, and it's required. We have email, which should be between 5 to 255 characters. It should be required. And here we also call the email method to make sure it's a valid email. And finally, we have password, which is also a string with minimum 5 characters and maximum, let's say 255, and it's required. So this is the password that the user sends in plain text. We're going to hash this, which is going to be a longer string, and that's the string we'll store in MongoDB. And finally, we need to change this genre here to user. So we're done with our validate user function. Now we need to export our user model. So we don't need the first export statement. That's for our schema. Delete. Here we're going to export this as user, and our validate function is also good. And here's our validate function. Beautiful. So we're done with our user model. In the next lecture, I'm going to add a route to register new users.